Do you guys remember these freaking death traps for your fingers? I remember people getting their fingers stuck under these a lot, and I mean a lot. I had long fingers, and that might have, contributed to the problem. But like, I feel like it was almost unavoidable with these things that you would absolutely get your fingers stuck. They're like rollerboards or something like that. We had these plastic ones, but honestly, the plastic ones weren't as good as like, the wooden ones that we also had. Because for some reason, my school was like really small, so we had, these really old ones. And we had an old everything. Everything was kind of old, but we'll get to that. But these things over here, much, much faster than these ones. Here, let me show you. Whee! These freaking, like, wooden ones, for some reason, I don't know if it was the bearings they put in these things or what was going on. Every single one of them had one of these little chips on it. Like, okay, everyone's been rammed into somebody hard enough that the little plastic protector that's around it is somehow broken, but we still have them as a school because honestly, it's because we're cheap. And that pretty much summed up everything involving my school. We were a tiny, tiny school, and we had, my class was huge with 20 kids, but we had a graduating class one year of 2, which should really go to show exactly what I'm talking about with, my school wasn't just cheap. We were the definition of cheap. We did everything as cheaply as possible, all the way down to having, the dodgeballs from, the early 50s still, because they refused to upgrade to those new ones. The ones that are actually safe to use and not gonna knock your teeth out every time somebody yeets it at you. But these rollerblades were kind of the worst example of that, because these ones, at least, these plastic ones, they had the little hand guards on them, which was fantastic. It would keep your hands safe and it was decently, good to use. Whereas these ones over here, they did not do that thing. They indeed would not protect your hand. If you rammed somebody and you had your hand up under this thing and you hit them on the side, your fingers were very likely to break because you would be zooming, absolutely zooming across the floor, and it would just go whoop. And then suddenly 2 people become 1. Because there was it's the fun side of small schools, I guess, but no safeties at all for any of this, especially not for the flag football. That one was more just us being stupid than it was the flag football being anything, but the school was so cheap that they didn't even have the actual clip-on belts and stuff like that. They had a rope that they tied around your waist and said, there, that's good enough, that's gonna do it. And then they had these little kind of slip-on things that would go above that, and then that would velcro on the actual flag piece. But the flag piece itself would be a rope in of itself. And so we all just acknowledged if we just tie that to ourselves, then nobody can get us out, because obviously if you can't pull off the freaking thing, then it's not a problem. Which obviously that led to a lot of stupid shenanigans happening, to the point that now, instead of this being flag football like it's supposed to be, it's more full contact. Because people would just wholesale tackle you, spear tackle you, and then go about untying the freaking flag so as they could get you out, because that's just what you had to do whenever you tied this crap on. It's as if that's why they designed it to not be that way. See, but that's the problem though, is that not everybody would do it that way entirely, because we actually did have, if I remember right, one big guy that would try to do the actual flag football, grabbing it and pulling it off. And in many ways that was kind of worse. That was worse than if he had just spear tackled you, because spear tackling, at least you're both on the ground and whatever. This guy just pulled the entirety of your weight with this one rope across your hip and yanked you back with the force that I swear he was trying to rip your kidneys out with this thing. It was nuts. It was nuts the amount of force this guy would put behind it. And every single time you saw him coming, you would yeet that ball back behind you so as he would not get you, which it wasn't even a football that we had. We had one of the dodgeballs when we would do this for some reason, because we were just that cheap, I guess. I remember there being footballs in the utility room, but we just never used any of them. That's probably got a lot to do with the fact that our teacher was also not the best. The guy was just awful in every way. He would ignore so much constantly going on, and you could have a whole fight in the back rooms or in the bathrooms, and he would hear it and actively make an effort to move away because that's how bad he was. And for some reason, they just allowed that to keep going. But to be fair, they allowed a lot of stuff to keep going at that school, but the gymnasium was by far the most dangerous death trap you would possibly be in, because the thing was built back in the 60s or something like that. And yeah, no, not the best. Not the best at all. Because it had a bunch of, like, old-timey stuff that kind of fits in with that kind of time era. One of those things being that it had these benches. Like, it just had these weird wooden benches. And it seems like no matter where you sit on these things, or no matter how you try, you will always get a splinter from them. Like, I swear, I've tried everything I possibly can to avoid it sitting on these benches, but they're made of splinters at this point. I don't think there's any actual solid wood left in them. And that pretty much goes for the build quality of the entire place. I mean, one time, it's so bad. Have you ever been rained out of a basketball game? Like, have you ever been mid-game, and then it starts raining, and then suddenly you find out that the roof has, like, I think it was 4 leaks in it. Like, it was insane. It was, like, the dumbest thing I think I've ever seen, is the fact that the roof is just leaking down on us so hard and so consistently that we had to cancel a basketball game. Like, imagine that. You're the home team, and you have to cancel your basketball game because the roof is leaking so bad. That was an embarrassing day. Our star player and everybody was out there trying desperately to just mop it up and act like everything was going to be fine. I think one of the recommendations was that we just put like a bucket, just like a bucket down, and just avoid that spot or avoid those spots that it was leaking. And then I find out later on that apparently they had fixed that roof like 6 times, and it just refused to be fixed. But of course, once I leave the school, that's when they finally actually fix everything. That's the annoying thing. I don't know if that happened to anybody else, but it was literally the year after I left. They got $1.5 million from somewhere to just fix everything, to fix every problem that I had been dealing with the entire time I was in this hellscape. I've heard that that's a common issue for other people, where it just seems like they only ever find the budget for the cool stuff. Like, they only get the photography class type stuff right after you leave and right after you wanted it. But back to us auto-generating stupid stuff and away from just the stupidity of life, we even made basketball dangerous. How, you may ask? By being really dumb. So the way that we did it is that we piled up these cheerleader mats, okay? And then we walked up to those cheerleader mats and just started alley-ooping off of them because we couldn't alley-oop naturally. So what we would do is we'd run up, jump off these mats, and then just like somebody would pass us the ball and we would try to like alley-oop it or slam dunk it depending on what we were feeling at that time. Now you may say to yourself, man, stacked cheerleader mats do not sound like they have the most friction and that they would give you the most support when you're flying through the air hoping not to break anything on a floor that's more wax than it is wood. And I would have to agree with you on that. Yes, no, these things were a terrible idea. We were dumb. We were really dumb. There's nothing else to it. We were stupid. And this was the pinnacle of that stupidity. Because we did have that happen. We had somebody run up, and this was during baseball season. This was one of our star baseball players. I need to preference that. This guy was doing stuff. But he ran up and just jumped off this thing, but he was slightly off. He was like off to one of the corners, and all of them just went whoop. And he just went kaboom, and suddenly he was not having a good senior year, because that, not even lying, took out his arm. He landed in the worst way. Well, maybe not the worst way, but he landed in a way that wasn't preferable. And it just, like, ooh, you could see it immediately. He had a little zing in his arm that wasn't there previously, and it's not supposed to look like that type stuff. But yeah, no, he went to the hospital for quite some time. Like this, he was gone for several days. And when he finally came back, he was in a cast, and he was in that cast all the way through baseball season. And I felt so bad because this was like near the end of the year. So all the games that mattered to him were now entirely out of his reach because we were all being really stupid. And somehow, I don't even think it was his idea. That's the sad part. But somehow he wound out being the only one getting actually injured from us being stupid. Probably because it happened pretty early on to us being stupid. So he just absorbed the consequences of the stupidity. Oh, I still feel bad for that guy though. But I guess leave in the comments if you guys have done anything sketchy or stupid in any of your schools, or if they had any old equipment. I'm not even joking though that my school actually did have a graduating class of 2 guys, and one of them, the valedictorian, catch this, had a B average. Could you imagine being the valedictorian of your class with a B average? That's just, ooh. I don't know if I'd be disappointed or happy. I mean, on one hand, happy happy because like I did get it. I got the valedictorian thing. So if any colleges look at it, I don't know if they're gonna check my grades or if I would be like disappointed that it's like, oh well, you know, I got it off like the hardest of technicalities and that's about it. I don't know. I guess leave a comment on if you'd have an opinion on whether you'd care.